Let's turn back to the other big news we are following, the unsealing of the search warrant of Mar-a-Lago. As we said earlier this week, these are not normal times, and nothing about the Department of Justice search of the former president's home is normal. And David Brooks wrote this in today's New York Times. In a normal society, when politicians get investigated or charged, it hurts them politically. But that no longer applies to the GOP. The judicial system may be colliding with the political system in an unprecedented way. So, joined now by my panel, Betsy Woodruff Swan, national correspondent at Politico and an NBC News contributor, Eugene Robinson, columnist at The Washington Post and an NBC News political analyst, and Matt Gorman, Republican strategist and former NRCC communications director. So, Betsy, let me start with sort of this larger question here, right? Can our political system and legal system live together long enough without crashing the car?
That's a great question. What we know is that there's been a huge sea change among Republican primary voters and the Republican base when it comes to the perception of federal law enforcement. Mm-hmm. And this is perhaps likely to be one of the more enduring legacies of the Trump era, is that a massive swath of Republican voters has been completely disabused of confidence that the FBI is.
By the way, and this will take decades to change. Yes. You know, in the 70s, it was the Democrats that were absolutely skeptical of the CIA and the FBI, and it's sort of, this will be a sea change that lasts.
This enduring hostility also, we've seen how this goes with the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, ATF, which became very politically electric in the 90s because of enforcement actions that they took then. Conspiracy theories, lack of faith, danger to ATF agents still persist in ways that people within ATF, which is a sister agency of the FBI, are acutely aware of to this day, which affects their ability to safely do their job. I think what we're going to see happening over the next 10, 20 years is a similar level of conspiracy-fueled hostility toward the FBI that will have real-world consequences.
Matt Gorman, before I get to you, I want to remind people that there were certain Republicans that were warning the country about Donald Trump and about concerns having to do with this, and they were all Republicans at the time. They're still Republicans today. Let me play a clip.
I'm going to tell you what I really think of Donald Trump. This man is a pathological liar. He doesn't know the difference between truth and lies. He lies practically every word that comes out of his mouth. And in a pattern that I think is straight out of a psychology textbook, his response is to accuse everybody else of lying.
This is the most important government job on the planet. We're about to turn over the conservative movement to a person that has no ideas of any substance on the important issues, the nuclear codes of the United States, to an erratic individual, and the conservative movement to someone who has spent a career sticking it to working people.
Now, would you want to give him the nuclear codes? If he had a bad day, maybe he'd put them on the internet.
Look, Matt, it's one of these reminders that when you were wondering, did anybody warn anybody about Donald Trump? Yeah, the first people to warn were Republicans. I have noticed in the last 24 hours, it seems as if there are some Republicans that are going, maybe I got out there too quickly.
Brings you back to a time when I had hair, back in 2015, 2016. Yeah. No, you're right. Me too. And it certainly, you're seeing more of a measured response from Republicans. If you can not say anything, don't say anything. Don't get out over your skis on this right now, because there's so much more that we don't know. And to your point about the Brooks piece, it's not even about, it's going even further. The legal and political parts colliding. When would you ever have a political candidate who's a subject of investigation release the information himself, that, like, whether it's Scott Perry with the phone or Trump that he got confirming that he got searched? It's wild. The precedents are wild.
Yeah.
Well, it's just weird for me. Back when I had hair, the way the Republicans sound today is the way the Weather Underground sounded back in the day.
Great
I
point.
mean,
You're
the FBI are a bunch of pigs, man.
You're right. This is Weather Underground. You're not wrong. It's the same thing.
It is insane.
Jane Fonda's probably going, wait a minute.
What? Wait a minute. Took my line. So, look, you asked, can they not crash the cars together? The cars are crashing, right? The crash is ongoing. The question is, what's the outcome going to be? Which is, are we going to uphold the rule of law or not? I mean, that's kind of, and at what price? At what price?
I also think another really interesting line that may or may not get crossed soon, but that's an important acid test, is not just how Republican candidates or Republican voters treat candidates who are under investigation, because just to do a little bit of throat clearing, an investigation is not an indictment, is not a conviction. Lots of people get investigated who are innocent. It doesn't mean you did anything wrong. The next question, of course, is how does the Republican base treat people who are convicted of crimes? And what we've seen with a host of the people in Trump's orbit who've been convicted of really big crimes is that many of these base voters are very much happy to forgive, happy to welcome these guys back into the fold, including people like Roger Stone and just now Steve Bannon. And these people maintain substantial clout among particularly the far-right pro-Trump Republican activist base. The question is, what happens when somebody's name is on a ballot who's not just under investigation, but who's been convicted for something? Is that forgivable? And do you remain electable after that?
But let's talk about the near term. The last thing Republicans want is Trump to be out there equally with Biden. It's too late.
Yeah.
We now know these midterms are going to be essentially, we have two presidents hovering over these midterms, and we don't know which one's hovers more at this point. What does Dr. Oz do? I say this like, walk me through this. You're a Republican. What does Dr. Oz do? He can't totally separate from Trump, but my God, he's got to be concerned about this. And oh, by the way, he has his own dual citizenship issue to deal with Turkey, which is not an insignificant thing. Well, national security.
Let's step back. There's a reason that the DCCC chairman, Sean Patrick Maloney, wants to put a bill on the floor
defunding the FBI.
Defunding the FBI. I mean, I don't think most Republicans, especially the ones in tough races, aren't stupid enough to vote for it. But still, it's the fact that he wants to do it. I think two things. I was talking to a Republican today who works in a lot of these races, and he takes this very seriously, what the news. He's not, putting this down at all. But what he is wondering is if this would hit harder and this would hit more impactfully if the Republican base hadn't been conditioned for 6 years that the walls are closing in. Mm-hmm. And I think that is one issue that you're going to see. If you're Dr. Oz or you're somebody else, as I said before, say as little as possible and just pivot when you can. It's not a great idea, but it's the best you can do in the circumstances.
But in a state like Pennsylvania, right? And so you've got the Republican base, and so they may be fired up. They may be more likely to vote for Dr. Oz or whatever. The folks in the middle, the folks who go either way, it's hard for me to believe that they're going to be as enthusiastic about, voting for criminality and violations of the Espionage Act than, say, the base would.
Well, it's interesting. I'll be very curious. I think the smartest way to message that is actually the way Biden messaged it, which is stability. Basically, do you want to go back to this crazy? And that's all it is. It doesn't matter. You may not like this, but it's stability. You know what it is. You just you don't know what you're getting over here, and just know it's a constant, is that the better way to go at that?
Yeah, sure. and I think, of course, that's always the challenge with midterms, is that Trump's name isn't on the ballot, Biden's name isn't on the ballot, and even though obviously this search, as the FBI would prefer we say, was really consequential and important, we still got a little bit before the midterms happen, and there's time for all sorts of plot twists to play out. The challenge, I think, for the Biden folks is, do they emphasize more what Biden has accomplished thus far in his presidency, some stuff, especially the IRA's imminent passage, that's really important, or do they try to make this election about somebody whose name is not on the ballot?
Yeah. And this is really, take the search out of it, rate out of it. This is a pivot point right now. Polls are tightening. The generic ballot isn't where it was in terms of favor of Republicans, say 3 months ago. So where they choose to go, both sides, is going to be really consequential right now. The Republicans don't have the advantage they did 3 month ago.
But both bases seem more engaged than ever.
Well, yeah,
and that, to me, is why I think these midterms are totally scrambled.
Exactly, and I think that's just ratcheting up on both sides. Yeah, absolutely. And the more Trump gets involved, the more the Democratic base is going to get involved. It's that's just inevitable. But Bets is right that yes, there could be plot twists. We don't know all that could happen in investigations of Trump. And people around Trump between now and then.
Well, this goes to, Betsy, the most amazing blind semi-quote, I guess you could call it. It was more of a paraphrase in the Times, where it said, people close to Trump are warning his allies, be careful. I mean, it's just that was astonishing. That was something else. I feels like, you're like, and there's a few people around Trump, I don't want to name names because it makes it look like a figure, who do think about the party as much as they think about Trump. So I kind of have an idea of who those people are, but that's something else.
When you think about the people close to Trump and the people who fit in that category, it's also still a really mixed bag. At Mar-a-Lago, the people Trump is dealing with every day, for the most part, are pretty hardcore true believers. It is so important that the person who signed the receipt on these court documents that just came out is Christina Bobb. Christina Bobb was an anchor for One America News, the far-right network. She was deeply involved in the actions leading up to January 6th.
She was used as sort of a propagandist plant during the press briefings,
She was,
right?
shall we say, she was very on message. And she also, I obtained an email where she was involved in communications about the alternate elector scheme, about the way that these alternate electors would be orchestrated in that calamitous project that the Trump folks undertook. Now she's working directly for Trump as a lawyer. Very much, there's no longer any sort of veneer, and she's the person whose name's on this document.
That is fascinating. Well,
Amazing. Amazing. I mean, it's just, too bad nothing's going on this week.
Once again, all things Trump, it's why you cannot dramatize Trump.
Yeah.
No.
Right.
The story itself is drama. Betsy, Eugene, Matt, enjoy your weekend.
Thank you.
And thank you for being here.